All right, welcome to module 5. So now we are starting to dive deeper into the flexibility training, and we are going to discuss subjects that require a little bit more knowledge. So I do recommend that you ensure that you understood the full first module. And if you have any questions, obviously feel free to ask me. But this module is going to be a little bit longer than the first four because we are diving quite intensely into the explanation of what is end range conditioning and how it works for your strength at the deep flexibility level. So let's approach lesson 1, which is the definition of end range conditioning. So now you have built the first four modules where to build a solid foundation into your flexibility, strength, and mobility. But also now we are going to look at the max range and building stability and flexibility at the max range. So here, if you have ever thought you can sink in the splits, but when you try to hold them, it's not really quite happening. Your passive flexibility is good, but you can't lift you don't have the same amount of active flexibility. You have quite a big gap between your active and passive flexibility. And if you don't stretch constantly, you lose your range quite quickly. So end range conditioning for me is what I believe transform your flexibility. So we'll cover why training at deep range build flexibility you can actually use. Yes, usable range, how isometric holds improve stability, and the key methods for strengthening flexibility at its potential. So let's dive in. What is range and range conditioning? Meaning that you're building the strength in your deepest stretch position. So we've talked about mobility, we talked about warm up, we talked about conditioning, but end range conditioning is actually strengthening your body and your joints at their maximum stretch. And I imagine you're sitting in a full split. And then if you had to go into an oversplit, lifting your front leg off the ground without using your hands, would you be able to do that? So this is the difference between passive flexibility and active flexibility. What you can't control versus what you can control, the stretch into what versus what you can actually strengthen into. So your passive flexibility, like we said earlier, is your borrowed range. Your body allows you to go there, but you don't really have strength. And the active flexibility is the flexibility that you own. So you train your muscles to support and control the movement. So some of us can have really good passive range, not very good active range. Some people can have good active range and the passive range is not necessarily much bigger than the active range. Your body will never allow you to go deeper than it feels safe, otherwise you will hurt yourself. Yeah, so that's why improving your strength at deep range allows your nervous system to release the tension and expand your flexibility. And this is the real secret to improving your flexibility faster. When you train the strength at the end range, your nervous system will start releasing the tension, so your passive flexibility start getting bit better. So when you earn your flexibility, you don't lose it as quickly as well. Why training at deep ranges build functional flexibility. It's a bit of a mouthful. So you think about gaining flexibility, but not necessarily on keeping it strong. So instead of just stretching, you don't let your muscle lose the ability to control the deep position. So you have to stop just stretching for a few weeks to notice that your flexibility will disappear. Your nervous system start limiting again your range. You haven't built the necessary strength, and your body and your nervous system is starting to react again and protect it. So training strength at end range is the solution to lock in your flexibility gain. Once you train that strength at this range, your flexibility is very likely to stay where you have built it. So if you can't control it, you don't own it. Remember that. Yes? Passive flexibility borrowed, active flexibility is owned. How isometric hold improves your stability in your splits. So when you do isometric training, again, we've learned that beforehand, holding a position under tension without movement. Yes, it's a very powerful method for developing stability in your deep flexibility because it strengthens your muscles at the max range, they improve neurological control, and they reinforce active flexibility. So when we talk about your holding in active range, it's very often not taking yourself into your passive flexibility, but taking it about 80% less and starting to strengthen. So that's why you will notice in some of the classes, you start lowering into your almost split. And instead of relaxing into the split, you're actually going to push the legs into the ground and we're going to hold. So very often you will see in the classes, we do those half split situation. And then we take the leg a little bit further forward. We hold again for about 10 seconds. We repeat 3 rounds of that. I don't know if you've noticed, and if you've done the classes already, you should have. But you have noticed that we have already done some end range conditioning like this. So this signals the body that it's safe to be at this range because you can hold the poses. So then it will reduce your flexibility resistance. That's why when I make you do in the class, when we do the end range conditioning, I make you stretch, contract in that stretch position, hold it there. And then we're going to take 10 seconds to relax and try and take that range a little bit further. So I always tell you, don't come back to where you started because the aim is to actually take your range further and further throughout the exercise. So what a key method. First of all, you've got the isometric holds, that is strength training at max range. Prevents overstretching, instability, because you do have to work the stability to try and go into the split slowly. Active the press down, building the muscle engagement. Then we have the eccentric training, which is what we discussed previously, slowly going down under load. So you obviously, without a weight, you're already loading your weight onto the muscle. So that's enough for when you start the beginning. Eccentric is slowly getting lower in the range, and you start increasing the flexibility while you still reinforce the muscle strength, and you also strengthen the tissues against overstretch injuries. So slow negative split drops and eccentric lunges. And third, we are going to talk a little bit more about PNF stretching. So PNF stretching is something that we will discuss in the next lesson. We are going to learn about the fact that it teaches the nervous system to unlock deeper ranges safely and reinforces active control in your extreme position. We are going to talk about pels rails contraction in split position, and training all of these methods together will be the real transformation your flexibility is going to start seeing. So the key takeaways here is end range conditioning turns your passive flexibility into active range. The strength at the deep range prevents your instability and your injury and your loss of flexibility. And your isometric, eccentric, and PNF techniques are essential for your long-term gains. Now, your learning activity will be to test your passive flexibility for 20 seconds. So again, you're going to take a photo or video. Then you're going to try to test your active range. You are going to try to lift your front leg of the floor, either in a split or wherever you are. So if you have blocks, for example, you're going to take yourself into your 80% splits, and then you're going to try and press on the blocks and lift that leg off the floor. And then you can also try the eccentric one or the half split hold, so where you don't use the support of the blocks, to see if you have the strength to go into those splits without just relaxing into them. And then you're going to compare and adjust your training. So if your active range is significantly lower, then that means that you need more strength work. So we're going to work on the next lessons here of the modules. This is what we're going to look at. We are going to look at using PNF and eccentric strengths to unlock your deeper range. So this is where we start getting a bit more technical in terms of flexibility training. Most flexibility training that we do for an average Joe, I'd say, or in certain contexts, will only include the element that we've discussed in module 1 to 4. What we're discussing now are the real kind of secrets and hacks to finally get into deeper range, keep that range, and really progress into your flexibility. So this is what we're going to look at: how PNF stretching tricks your nervous system, why eccentric strength training helps control your extreme flexibility, and how to integrate all these techniques. So I will see you in the next lesson.